Yo sé bien que estoy afuera, pero el día que yo me muera, sé que tendrás que llorar. Llorar y llorar, llorar y llorar. Dirás que no me quisiste, pero vas a estar muy triste y así te vas a quedar. Con dinero y sin dinero, hago siempre lo que quiero y mi palabra es la ley. No tengo trono ni reina, ni nadie que me comprenda, pero sigo siendo el rey. ¡Happy 5 de Mayo!
It's time for the main event. It's the Shoeshine.
All right, everybody, what's up? And welcome to another edition of the Shoeshine. And a happy Cinco de Mayo edition too, Drew. I wonder if you even got a chance to listen to me and Johnny Savage doing the mariachi thing again, man.
I barely did, and I even said in chat, "Cause somebody tell me what they're saying."
Let me say hello to everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining the Shoeshine on Monday night. It was a fantastic weekend for boxing, but some very, very tragic news in the world of sports. And a boxing star out of Puerto Rico was involved in a horrific murder. Most of the boxing fans know about it. We'll cover that a little bit later, but it is Cinco de Mayo, and that's traditionally a very, very big week for Mexican and Mexican-American fans. We'll try to celebrate all the positive things of this weekend and what's coming up ahead, and we'll cover that other thing. But Drew, let me just say a shout out to all of our colleagues at the Leave It in the Ring radio network. Our homeboy David Duende, who was out in Las Vegas having a good time this weekend. His co-host Amilcar, they do the Monday night thing. Leave It in the Ring YouTube. And of course tomorrow, are you down with HCP? Because they got some big stars tomorrow. The return of Xander Zayas, top rank 147-pound prospect, as well as Team Roman, if I'm correct. They're gonna have two very interesting prospects tomorrow. A shout out to G Funky and D Styles. So Drew, huge weekend for boxing. The Battle of the Taco Trucks is what I like to call it. I don't know what you like to call it. And again, hello to everyone in the chat. Thank you for being here. Chicano Prophet, Bella Bling. We got Raw Boxing was in here. G Funky too. Hey, nice to have you, A-Rod. Drew, a lot of people were upset that they had to pay for this Chris Arreola, Andy Ruiz pay-per-view special by PBC, right? Some of us were upset. It's $50. It wasn't that bad. But I told you out of principle that I wanted to watch this fight. I have to watch this fight. I was in the room with G Funky was doing this tremendous live thing with all the fans hosting it. He was watching and commentating, and that was good enough for me, but I couldn't help myself. I had to find a crack stream. Yes, I was trying to find a crack stream. I didn't want to pay for it. And unfortunately, dude, I don't know if I was looking everywhere, scouring the internet, and this is what I found. Let me see here. somebody told me that this was the big heavyweight fight for the two Mexicans. And of course, I bought into it and I clicked on it. And there it was, Drew. Chris Arreola. And I thought, hey, Chris Arreola, this might be they said he had lost a lot of weight, right? And that Andy Ruiz was looking in shape. But no, I had to do a little research and remind myself I'm not a casual boxing fan. That was not the fight I was looking for. Not the fight. They looked a lot better shape than that, right? Because I did end up...
Oh, yeah. I'll be honest with you, Dave. I thought they weighed like 500 pounds each before they lost all that weight.
Yeah. G-Funky says, I paid... and I was happy with the $50 spent. And also, G-Funky had hosted a tremendous little party on YouTube for all the fans to chime in. And I was in on that. It was a lot of fun. And there's nothing wrong with that. That ended up being, here's the deal. PBC was charging $50. And there was some announcement that they thought they had sold about 800,000 before the fight. So if that ends up being true and people bought the fight at the last minute, they could be looking at 1 million plus pay-per-view sales, legitimate sales, for Andy Ruiz, the only Mexican-American to ever win the heavyweight title, and Chris Arreola, a two-time challenger. That fight was great. That fight was tremendous, man. I really enjoyed it. And I got to say, this week, I'm dedicating the show to the winners and losers in the sport of boxing. And right now, I'm going to say the overall winner in the sport of boxing this weekend was Chris the Nightmare Arreola. If you got a problem, go ahead and tell me in the chat why Chris Arreola is not the champ, the winner, not the champ, but the winner. Drew, I said he'd get knocked out before 12. I think you did too. Almost everyone in our circle was saying he wouldn't make it the distance. But not only did he make it the distance, he dropped Andy Ruiz. And then in the third round, he almost dropped him again. And we were just talking about that scorecard. The scorecard didn't do him justice. Your thoughts on that?
I thought it was a lot closer. I thought that would knock down in the third round counted. He would have won the fight on my card. I thought Andy Ruiz won by 2 points on my card.
Really? Well,
yeah,
you heard him afterwards in the post-fight interview. He's always colorful. And he's always entertaining. He's actually quite dangerous on the microphone. Give him the microphone and he's dangerous, And he quoted Dr. Dre, if you remember what he said. But you thought you actually gave him the fight. Is that what you're saying?
I actually would have gave him the fight if he would have got the second knockdown. He only lost by 2 points on my card.
Yeah, if he had gotten that third round knockdown, which Andrew Ruiz somehow did a little dance with his legs and managed not to get dropped, man. But it was very, very competitive in my eyes. So G-Funky just posted, I gave Arreola 3 rounds max, but I'm curious if that includes second and the third round and then an additional round. But let's just say that there have been people in heavyweight fights who've dropped the opponent twice, lost all the other ones, and still came up with a draw. I mean, we almost had that scenario with Wilder Fury 1, right? You got a guy getting dropped twice and still edging a draw. So that's why I give Chris Arreola winner of the week. But Drew, the StubHub Center is no longer named that. It's a soccer stadium in Southern California. It's open air, and it's home to some of the greatest fights in the past 10 years. And I got to ask you about this, man, because I got to ask the chat, but what is up with La Raza, man? We haven't been allowed to be in a fight in a stadium in California, whether indoors or outdoors. And not one, but apparently the whole stadium was rocking with fist fights. And yeah, I mean, we could joke about it on Saturday night on Twitter that it's funny. This is what we do at Dodgers games and whatnot. Notice, I'm from NorCal. Yeah, exactly. But listen. People could get seriously hurt with this nonsense, man. This is not a good look. And I don't want to get criticism from my own people, but it's not a good look. We're there to watch professional fighters do their thing, not to engage with someone over the dumbest shit possible. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, people get hurt in those type of fights and situations. We got a guy from San Francisco who went to LA some 10 years ago, and he's still recovering from brain damage. He almost nearly was killed in a fight just like that at a Dodger Stadium. These things can go wrong really quickly. And at the end of the day, we've even had people in stadium fights here in the Bay Area where, you didn't mean any harm. You thought it was an innocent bar fight, but at the end of the day, you were charged with involuntary manslaughter when that person hits the concrete and you realize you just wasted away your whole life. I'm 100% on this. My strong feelings are leave the fighting at the fights for the professional fighters. We're there to support them. We're there to support the sport of boxing. There's really no room for this nonsense unless somebody physically attacks you first, then you got the right to defend yourself. But not a good look, man. On our first fight, G Funky says Fato's been in the house for a year, so you know it's funk season. Now, yeah, I mean, a lot of that had to do with, I think, just being caged up in California, man. We had some of the strictest corona restrictions and whatnot, and finally people were allowed to go to a sporting event. And of course, boxing and MMA gets people riled up and gets the testosterone going, right? Drew, but you're from Philadelphia, man, and the Philadelphia Eagles fans. Your fan base is notorious for this. So your thoughts on seeing all these people getting crazy in the stands?
First of all, we're notorious for flowing snowballs at Santa. First of all, let me clarify that. But second of all, that was almost as worse as running over the Bulls.
You don't expect to go in there, but yeah, Chicano province says not just the vatos, the viejas were getting theirs in too. Yeah, there's some funny. Well, see, that's what I'm saying. Even I'm saying it's funny, but yeah, there's some ladies kicking guys with their high heels, man. And then in one clip, I saw a woman kick some guy with a high heel, and then I don't know, out of nowhere, she felt bad, and right after she walks up to him and gives him a hug. We got to do better than that, especially as fans get to go back to Vegas any minute. We got to do better than that.
I think, at the end of the night, when it comes to that, I think the real winners was the one that was able to watch that shit right straight, front and center, watching them fight each other, and watch the woman hit the dude with the high heel, and then after that put her arm around him and talk to him. That's really good forgiveness right there. This freaking girl hit me with a high heel, and she's putting her arm around me. We're having a good conversation. Listen, she almost poked my eye out with that shit.
I just put a picture up. Now, we were talking about those first two guys, me looking for a crack stream on this fight. It didn't pan out, right? And those guys looked nothing like them, like the real fighter Arreola and Ruiz, because those guys did come in the lightest shape. Well, Arreola came in the best condition of his life for 40 years old under Joe Goosen. And I think it served him well because he did better than I've seen him in years, right? He wasn't just a punching bag. But I got to ask you, dude, was there some shenanigans with Andy Ruiz's pictures leading up to the fight, man? Because this is a fight, a picture here. And I'm thinking, I was watching the fight and my wife goes, wait a minute. She goes, where's the six pack that he was showing on all these photos on Instagram and Twitter? You saw these cut up guns. And then I find this picture and I'm like, oh, I see. I see where he lost all his weight. Drew, it was in the legs.
Well, I have a question for the chat. I hope none of you guys are Andy Ruiz fans because I'm going to disappoint you if you are right now. Andy Ruiz is no longer a top 5 heavyweight.
Well, definitely let the chat decide on that. And also, let me just make a point. I'm going to check our phone line, but we do have a live phone line. And, actually, we do got a caller. Let me see if he's still on here.
Johnny, it's you. I'm hanging up on you.
915, you are on the Shoeshine.
Jesus Christ, it's John Savage.
What's going on? This is D-Style. I'm here to pay the piper. I'm here to remind somebody about a bet. That's why I'm calling in.
D-Style from HCP. Are you down with HCP? Dude, I can't believe you remember Drew Evo and you were
down with HCP. Yeah, you know me.
Drew,
Did I make a pie bet with Drew? Yeah, you know me.
Drew, is this pie bet still going on?
Yes, it is, and I'm going to tell you why. If you watch that video I did earlier, you can look up on my YouTube channel. You can look it up on the Shoeshine channel. It's my prediction. Actually, it's not a prediction. It's a spoiler because I don't make predictions. I make spoilers at the end of the day.
Okay.
Now, that's going to be a spoiler.
Right. You guys had famously did a pie bet, and you took the pie like a man. So are you guys publicly announced this bet?
That's the way it's done. Well, the thing is, does Drew still want to do the bet? I'm going to give him one more chance to get out of the bet. Does he really believe in Billy Joe Saunders? Does he believe in Billy Joe? Does he really believe? Does he, what does his gut tell him? Does he really believe that they'll be announcing, that the new unified champion at super middleweight is Billy Joe Saunders over Saul Canelo Alvarez? I don't think so.
Let me ask my gut.
I don't think he believes that.
Let me ask my gut. Gut, I have to ask you a question. Do we still think Billy Joe's gonna win this fight? I just checking real quick. Yeah, we're still on. Yeah, I got you, man.
Yeah. So you're ready to take a pie then? Is that what you're saying? You're gonna take a pie for Billy Joe?
You know what? It's gonna be a shame. I'll take a pie on my show Monday if he loses. But D-Style, man, if you take another pie, man, I feel really bad for you. If you take another pie, man, I feel so bad for you, man.
Canelo's gonna win, brother. I'm gonna tell you right now.
All right,
Canelo's gonna win the fight.
So I know that we speculated.
If you say so.
We do. The Shoeshine is new on YouTube. We're the newest member of the Leave It in the Ring Radio Network. I'm totally for this bet, but Drew, you got to own the bet, and you got to be willing to take the bet, the pie to the face if you lose next week. The only thing I ask D-Style is that you come back next Monday and you let all your followers know that Drew lost the bet and he's taking the pie to the face next Monday night. Drew, you got to buy the pie.
Look, if he loses the bet, I'm going to screen share it. I'm going to put that piece on my channel. It will go on my trophy case. So what I want Drew to know is the following, that Billy Joe Saunders will not win this fight. And I know you know it. And so do yourself a favor. They got specials. Usually at Walmart, they got specials for pies during the weekend. You know what I mean? Because the bakery starts making them again on Monday. Don't buy the new one. You're going to waste more money that way. Just go to the bakery and get yourself a pie.
I'm going right to the market around the corner.
That'll do. But the pie bet is official now with D-Style.
Here's the thing, man. We're gonna be watching that fight Saturday night. Canelo's gonna miss Billy Joe, and Billy Joe Sanders gonna do this. Where did that fist go?
Again? Because it sounds like you believe it. Say it again.
I do believe it, because here's the thing: if you really watch all the guys that Canelo's fought recently since Laura, he's fought guys that stood in front of him the whole time that are willing to trade with him.
Yeah, Billy Joe fought?
So
who's Billy Joe fought?
So we're gonna
Murray
see that.
because he was two-stepping Murray. An old, washed-up Murray put a little bit of leather on him. I think Canelo will be okay.
He fought Lemieux during that fight in Canada.
I want to ask the chat.
Lemieux. First of all, Lemieux doesn't even have a jab, brother. I mean, come on. We're talking about a zombie here. This is Saul Canelo Alvarez is who we're talking about. It's just not. I'm telling you right now, Billy, you're going to feel good about yourself for the first 2-3 rounds, and then Canelo's going to take over. I'm just letting you know right now. Once Billy Joe feels, I mean, we got Billy Joe out here begging for a 24-inch ring. Well, why do you think he wants a 24-inch ring? Well, why is his dad out here crying? They're trying to make us fight an 18 by 18 because he don't want to fight. Dude's going to run. He's got two choices. Fight him mano y mano, Cinco de Mayo weekend, okay? So come at Canelo and get knocked out, or run around the ring and you're going to lose the decision. So it's, one way or another, I'm going to win.
And you brought up a really good point. D-Style brings up a really good point, and I want to ask everyone who's participating in the chat, and later you can leave it in the comment section. Does anybody think that BJ Saunders is going to secure a decision win in the state of Texas? Drew, that literally means, Drew, that you're banking on BJ Saunders doing the unthinkable and knocking out Canelo Alvarez. But the bet's been made. Yeah,
the bet's been made.
I want you to do me a favor, Dave. I want you to save this conversation, because when BJ Sanders wins this fight, we're gonna play this conversation again next week. I'm gonna be like this. So, still confident.
Hey, Drew.
You all confident about that pie, aren't you?
Hey, Drew.
What's up, D-Sal? Come on.
None of us have 100%, call rate when it comes to calling fights, but I got a really good batting average, and I never been wrong about a Canelo fight or a Billy Joe Saunders fight. I'm telling you right now.
He is the underdog.
Right now.
Drew's good at betting for the underdog, but this is a really hard bet to go in favor of Billy Joe Saunders.
Yeah. I get it. You know what I mean? Like, Drew wants to go for the guy that was showing people how to hit your wife with a speed bag. He wants to support the guy that paid somebody to hit a homeless man. But, bad guys don't win in life in the end. You know what I mean? Score one for the good guys. Saul Canelo Alvarez for the win.
But this is going to be very exciting. We've got something to look forward to next Monday. D-Style, just remind us who's going to be on your show tomorrow, because you got some really big guests tomorrow on HCP.
Well, who's down with HCP? That's Hispanic Causing Panic tomorrow. We're going to have Sanders Zayas, prospect out of Puerto Rico. Won a lot of youth championships in Puerto Rico, is a hell of a talent. All right, so I can't wait to have him on. Danny Roman is in the middle of training camp right now. He's going to take some time out after the Sanders Zayas interview to come and do an interview with us again. And we might have a third guest. It's not looking likely, but we might. But hey, man, we're going to have Chicano Prophet. We're going to have, of course, G-Funky, myself, Raw Boxing. So it's going to be a hell of
Listen, if you got space for me. If you got space for me, I'd love to at least sit in there for Xander. I haven't seen the kid since I was at his first 2 pro fights, and I'd love to just say hello to him in person. Would love to if you got room for me. All right, sounds good, man.
Well,
hey.
just hit me up on DM and for that. But here's what I'll say, man, and I want to give a shout out to Philly Irish Drew. Okay, there's going to be time to pay the piper. Okay, this is redemption for D-Style, redemption for the Dragon. This is it right here. This is easy. People, like everyone that's watching this is like, oh, come on, D-Style. Like, well, why are you going to take this easy one right now? It's an easy one to take, but I'll take it. I'm signing out.
Peace out, man. I appreciate it. All right, D-Styles, everybody. Drew, he called you on it. I had no idea he was going to call you out. I thought, oh, man, he forgot about the pie bet, but you're going to stick to your guns. BJ
Drew
Saunders.
Never forgets about the bet.
You put the video up today. We posted it on our channel here and on your channel. It's up on Twitter. And I'll remind everybody this week, we got something to look forward to. Somebody's taking a pie next week. Somebody is taking a pie, whether it's D-Style's second pie in the row or Drew Evo's first pie on the YouTube channel. If I felt that strongly about this with any fight, I'd be glad to take a tres leches cake, man. Everybody knows that who's Mexican.
You know what was going to be the funniest thing is Billy Joe Sanders wins. All these faces with the down look on their face, and I get to look at them all while I get to smile and said, don't ever bet against me.
Yeah, Nando Lama says Tyson Fury seems confident in his boy as well. And Nando, he also feels confident about that clothing. He be wearing that Versace in Las Vegas all weekend with the shirt open. Drew, I saw Tyson Fury working out, and I'm glad he's not photoshopping his videos or photoshopping his pictures. He's got no six-pack, but he's out in Vegas, and the Versace shirt is wide open, and he's hanging out with BJ Saunders out there. He's looking confident. I'm looking forward to whenever this fight gets made. LT says, saludos, mi raza. We got a couple callers, so let's take, we're going to go first with 916 and then take 503. 916, what's up? You're on the Shoeshine.
Hola de raza. What's going on, guys?
What's going on? G-Funky, the other half of HCP. Are you calling to rub it in Drew's face prematurely about the pie bet, or are you feeling BJ Saunders' chances?
Well, he didn't make his pick yet. He's got to make his pick then.
They got 2 shows this week.
I made my prediction. It's already on the. I made it last week. It's already on the channel. Go ahead and check that out. But yeah, man, I'm just calling to remind everybody that you know what. Word around in the HCP streets, in the YouTube streets, is that D-Style's new street name is Pie Face, Holmes.
That's gonna be your boy's new name soon.
Does anyone have the odds that would like to put the odds, the current Las Vegas odds that they have for BJ Saunders? He's clearly an underdog, but sometimes these underdogs, it's worth it to make the bet if it's if you got $100, man. I'm not sure what it's gonna pay. He's clearly the underdog. Anyone know?
Yeah, well, you know me, man. When I see a good underdog bet, brother, I take it. I've made some good feria over the last year on some underdogs, man. In this situation, though, it's a little bit different. I agree a lot with what Drew is saying about the fight. I definitely think that Saunders has the tools to pull an upset here. Unfortunately, we've seen in the past with Canelo, you know, when he's in fights where it's a round where you're one of these guys. Well, he was coming forward, he was aggressive. Well, the other guy was controlling the ring. He's moving around. He's pot shotting. He seems to get the benefit of the doubt from the judges. So if I'm a betting man, I'm staying away from it. But I do honestly feel like Saunders has beautiful footwork, good hand speed. He's a southpaw. He's got good upper body movement, good head movement. I believe he's going to give Canelo some trouble, and I think this is going to be a very interesting fight, man.
Boy, it should be a hell of a fight on Cinco de Mayo. I think they've sold clearly like in excess of 60,000 tickets. This would be the biggest boxing sporting event since post-pandemic. We're not post-pandemic, but after the pandemic, during the pandemic, whatever you want to call it. This is going to be the biggest boxing event. It's going to rival some of the ones pre-pandemic. G Funky, I'm so glad you're on the air because you've been attacked on the YouTube community for saying that you thought Lara may have pulled off the upset against Canelo. And this weekend, we saw a new, I don't know if it's a new invigorated 38-year-old Lara, but Lara pulled off a sensational one-round knockout against a very tall guy this guy, though not relatively unknown, his record didn't indicate he was no Uber driver, man. What'd you think of Lara's performance today on PBC on the undercard?
Well, that was very exciting, man, to see Lara get in there, first fight at 160 pounds and knock a guy flat out in the first round. I can't help but whenever I hear Jimmy Lennon Jr. say, and it's Landy, the American Dream Lara, I can't help but think about Dusty Rhodes and that song that he had when he was at the WWF. When he was wearing the polka dot outfit. I just can't help but think about that, me being a big pro wrestling fan. But, it was exciting to see him in there like that. I wouldn't mind seeing him in there mixing up with some of these dudes. I still think he's got a little bit left in the tank, man. And he's starting to show he can crack. He's sitting down on his punches a little bit more. So I'm excited, man.
Yeah, and there's definitely, there's Charlo at 160 pounds. At PBC, that's clearly someone that I'm very interested in. That's a fight that's very makeable, Drew, right? Charlo. But also, I was on Twitter and some people responded to me about this. But Lara is the guy who gave Canelo the most problems in recent years, a very controversial loss. And Lara and Triple G makes a lot of sense to me at 160 pounds. I'd like to know what the chat thinks. I'd like to know what you think about that fight, Drew.
I'm going to be honest with you. If you look at the top dogs in middleweight right now, I really think your two best fighters in that division is Bubu Andre and Law.
Two southpaws.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I think Law beats Charlo, Eubanks Jr., Triple G, Noota. I think his name's Noota, right? The guy's going to fight Triple G. And
the Japanese guy.
Morata, yeah.
And the Andre fight, I really think that's going to be a really hard fight, difficult fight to pick if these two ever was to match up against one another. It's going to be a real difficult fight to pick because, one, you don't know who the underdog will be. Probably Andre be the favorite because he's the undefeated fighter, but they have so much similar styles when it comes to the slick boxing and everything. I just really think Lara, is my opinion. Right? I know he just moved up to 160, but to be honest, I think he beats almost every fighter in that division.
Listen, you brought up Eubanks Jr., who was on the Dazn card. The boxing weekend started off with that Dazn card, and I had been really interested in seeing where Eubanks was going to go because he was coming in with Roy Jones Jr. now as his trainer. He's been out of the ring for over a year, and Eubanks Jr. is campaigning at 160. You have Jaime Munguia over at Dazn, something that could easily be. Where do these guys fit in that 160 equation, G-Funky? Where does Jaime Munguia fit in? Eubanks Jr., emulating Roy Jones's fancy footwork.
Right. Yeah, he sure did try to emulate Roy Jones a lot. on Saturday, and I gotta be honest with you, man. I've never been a big fan of Eubanks. To me, he just looks really, really stiff. You know, his punches come a little stiff, a little wide. I don't know if it's a lifting weights thing. I know that there's some guys in the gym that like to lift weights. You know, a lot of the trainers that I knew around my city, they did not recommend guys lifting weights because they would get really stiff that way. But that's just the way he looks to me. I don't think he looks good trying to imitate Roy Jones. I'm just not really – I've never really been sold on Eubanks. Munguia, there's still a lot of questions about Munguia. I'm waiting for him to step up to fight one of these guys near the top of the division. He's tough. You know, he's someone who can take a good shot. He's someone who can give a good shot. But we need to see that against somebody that's, you know, a good fighter at 160. He hasn't fought anybody really at 160. So there's still a lot of questions to be answered there. But a Eubanks-Munguia fight, I'm not mad at that. Not mad at that at all. If they made that, that would be interesting. And I don't see how they can't make that fight next. Both are on the zone. One guy's on Matchroom, one guy's Golden Boy. Should be an easy fight to make. And I think it should be a pretty decent fight, decent scrap.
No, Nando Lamas just reverberated that as well. Eubanks versus Mujia is a nice money fight. And Mujia will be apparently, you know, his opponent, I think he got COVID and it had been postponed, but they got that fight scheduled, it looks like, for June in Texas. I think near D-Styles' El Paso, Texas. The fight will be coming back. So we get to see take another look at Jaime Munguia. You know, he was the champion at 154. We'll see if he has the goods to be a champion at 160. I'm excited for that. But not D-Style, G-Funky. Bro, what did you think of these people fighting in the stadium, man? I just got to ask you about that.
You know, like I said in the chat, man, these vatos been locked up during quarantine. They get out, you see somebody, it's on site. You know what I'm saying? They're ready to roll. And we seen that. I think there was probably about 3-4 different scraps in the audience. And unfortunately, you know, that happens at sport events, especially boxing. You get guys fired up. They get a couple of cold ones in them, and they're ready to fucking rock and roll, you know. And but you know what? I think this stuff really kind of took away from how good the card was, man. I was happy with the card. I felt like all the fights were good, competitive. Fandora and Kota, man, that was a war. Those dudes went to war. To me, the most one-sided fight of the night was probably Ramos Figueroa, which I thought was going to be a little bit better. But Figueroa had one of the weirdest styles I think I've ever seen going into that fight. He got punished towards the end of that fight. And the main event was a lot better than we all thought. And I want to say this, man. I know a lot of people having these knee-jerk reactions to what happened with Andy Ruiz and Chris Arreola. And I expected Ruiz to knock him out, but he did look very rusty to me. And credit to Chris Arreola. The man can still take a good punch and deliver a good punch, but him and Goose came up with a good game plan.
Absolutely.
Had a good game plan in there. And, made Andy Ruiz fight a little bit outside of himself. And, Andy's a natural counterpuncher. And they did the thing where they said, you know what, we're going to make this guy come forward and be aggressive. And when you're a natural counterpuncher like Andy, you don't throw a lot of punches. You know, you wait to counter. And when you make that guy become the lead guy, you know, it's going to look that way. So credit to those guys, man. I think Andy's going to look good in his next fight. He's been off a long time. And I don't know if they're going to put him in with Ortiz or not, but, you know, that would be a decent fight. But I'd rather have him fight somebody else, to be honest with you.
On the subject of HCP, D-Style says, Drew, you have till tomorrow night, HCP, to step down from the bet. That's your deadline. We were all I was on your show, and we had a kid that I'm really high on HCP, Jesus Ramos Jr., called us from his gym before this fight. He really, to me, him and Xander Zayas, who you're going to have tomorrow night, if you take prospects under the age of 20, I think those two welterweights are most likely they're the ones you should be watching every single fight. He took on a former Olympian in Molina and finally went rounds. I mean, you know, we were talking about we want to see fighters. We saw Berlanga go rounds the week before. We finally saw Jesus Ramos Jr. go rounds with a former Olympian, which is no shame, and still come up with the victory. So I'm very excited. I want to know what you think about him and his development. I'm excited to continue the relationship that we have with him because I know that one day one of these fighters we talked to on this show is going to be the future champ.
Yeah, you make a good point. Him and Xander, two young guys that are looking like they're going to be world champions in the next few years. I was happy with what Ramos did against Molina. I felt like he got a little bit tired towards the end of the fight, which is typical, when you're in there and you're getting guys out every fight, you're not going the distance. We saw the same thing with Berlanga last Saturday when he finally went the distance. Looked like he was getting a little bit tired towards the end, but that's part of growing in the game. You know what I'm saying? You got to get those rounds in. You got to get that experience in. So I wasn't mad at him, and you're right about Molina. He's Olympian, so he knows what he's doing in there. He's no pushover. So good experience and good win for Ramos, man. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on him from here on out.
Yeah, and I hope we get to speak to him again. I look forward to again. He's had over at PBC that's got all the welterweight stable, the best welterweight stable. You know what I mean? While Bud Crawford is looking for opponents. Now Nando Lames says that Jesus Ramos didn't impress me. He's technically sound, but no killer instinct. He almost has all knockouts. This is his only second fight at 147. He hasn't filled into his complete man strength. And Molina, a guy who's never been knocked out in his life. So I wasn't expecting him to go down.
Yeah.
Now, had Jesus Ramos also knocked this guy out, I would be like, damn, I'm really, really sold. But all we can ask for is that you continue to see these guys develop fight after fight and not take a step backwards, right? That's all we can ask, man. Yeah, G-Funky, I really appreciate you calling in the show. We have just one more phone number. And don't forget, guys, to watch on Wednesday, HCP Uncensored on G-Funky. G-Funky, any thoughts about this weekend you want to get off your chest on the Shoeshine? About this coming weekend?
Yeah, before I go, I just want to say this, man. Again, thanks for taking my call. I appreciate you, Dave, and Drew for taking my call. But I want to say this, man. I know there's a lot of people out there that want to say, Philly Irish, his only good win was against Lemieux. But let me just tell you guys something, man. I remember a lot of people were picking David Lemieux to annihilate Billy Joe Saunders in that fight. And it turned out completely different. The man wiped him out 12 rounds. So he deserves a lot of credit for that, man. Come on, guys. Let's be consistent here, all right? But I look forward to the fights, man. Thanks for taking my call, guy. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, G-Funky. We'll talk to you later, buddy.
He forgot to mention that's not the biggest win of his career. The biggest win of his career was against Chris Eubanks Jr.
And we just saw him fight. That is Chris Eubanks. That was a great win for him. When you look at Chris Eubanks, people forgot that he did lose to him, two UK guys.
But I want G-Funk to do one favor for me, man. When D-Style, man, he feels so bad after that fight. If Canelo loses, I just need him to be a good friend, put his arm around him, say, "It's okay, champ. That pie's gonna taste good Monday." Just be a good friend.
D-Style says, Lemieux, LMAO, GTFO. If you watch HCP, recently that Amilcar Caribe from Monday Nights Leave It in the Ring, he seems to be in favor. He supports Canadian fighters, and D-Style called him out on that. And I don't think D-Style is a fan of too many of the Canadian champions. And, of course, Lemieux is one of the hardest hitting ones from Canada. Let me take this 503 if they're still on the line because I appreciate them calling and waiting. 503, you're on the Shoeshine.
What's happening? This is the Chicano Prophet.
Oh, Chicano Prophet, thank you so much for holding, man. I haven't had you on the show, but I appreciate you holding on there and talk to me, man, because you got Canelo Alvarez on your little thumbnail for your YouTube channel. Everyone subscribe to Chicano Prophet on YouTube. Talk to me about this weekend or talk to me about the past weekend, man. Get it off your chest.
Yeah, man, just a little bit of everything. At first, I want to say there's nothing wrong with somebody thinking that Lara beat Canelo, okay? It's just that G-Funky has a very long history of being a Canelo hater, and there's a lot of history there, bro. And I have the receipts. And tomorrow, I'm there to be a hired gun to keep G-Funky in line because he can't stay consistent. So that's what I'm there to do. But otherwise, there's nothing wrong with thinking that Lara won that fight. And as far as Lemieux and Eubank being decent wins, I think they're okay. But, those wins wouldn't even be like top 10 wins for Canelo, in my opinion, okay? But I do like that people are picking Billy Joe Saunders to win this fight. I think it makes it fun. And I've always said this is a good fight because good foot movement and a slick southpaw is what gives Canelo problems. And I also like that UK channels, as well as people like Drew. Drew, I like the prediction video. I like that people are starting to circle the wagons and back up Billy Joe Saunders. This is fight week, and I'm very excited about it.
Oh, I'm very excited as well. And also, I'd like to point out that you made a very good prediction video as well. And I think it's great when people put their opinions out there publicly and it's recorded, because we know where people stand and they can always go back and reflect on growth. But, you made this point about G-Funky, and I just wanted to share my personal evolution on Canelo. I was one of those guys that you would deem like you'd see wearing, I never publicly owned a t-shirt that said Mexicans for GGG, but I was in that wagon in a sense that Canelo really had to sell me that he was the goods, that he was the future of Mexican boxing. And I went to so many of his early fights where I saw like people violently throw beer cans in the ring because they were upset that Perro Angulo didn't show up to fight, or they were upset that, Chavez Jr. couldn't even win one round. And then it dawned on me after watching Canelo win these historic wins that he really evolved after the Mayweather fight. That was Canelo 2.0. He's not the same fighter I attended all his early fights and saw him, beat these fighters and would dismiss those wins. He's truly a different guy now. What's your thoughts on that, Chicano Prophet, about the evolution for people like me who've evolved on their opinion on him?
My views have evolved as well. Like back in the day, like I remember when I first heard about Canelo, it was when they were floating this idea that he might fight Floyd Mayweather, and people were like, I never even heard of this guy. And then he showed up on the Mayweather-Mosley undercard. And then he got chin-checked by Cotto's brother. So it took me a long time to even get past that, because I'm like, look at this hype job, getting all this hype, you know what I mean? And he just continued to succeed and do well. And I did see skill. And then, so it took me a little while to kind of accept him as a decent fighter, and then it was just about after he got his ass kicked by Mayweather that I started feeling that way too. But, along the way, I did start to respect him more just in general. Like his Trout win was a very good, solid win. A lot of people now kind of forget about the work he did at 154. It's very respectable, just like he's done at every division. So my views have evolved as well. And so I totally agree with you. Everybody has their own objective opinions, but if you're respecting people who go and fight people at the very top of the division and do that as they continue to go up, you have to respect that. If you are comparing his resume to anybody else's, you could talk about champions that he's faced. You could talk about accolades, unifications, number one rankings in the division, ring titles. The list goes on and on. He's very accomplished, and he deserves to be respected.
Today, I saw a video Eri Reynosa put out. Actually, it was Fight Hub TV put it out, and Eri Reynosa says he wants to see Canelo move up to 175 and fight Beterbiev. Canelo himself, a couple weeks back, says he thinks this is it for him at 168. But, so many people want to see him move up. We saw him fight Kovalev, and I'm starting to think maybe he could beat some of these guys. Bivol this weekend, who fought on the Dazn card, failed to impress me. He looked like he had some serious ring rust. Some of those rounds were really questionable. What do you think about Canelo moving up to 175 when he's done with 168, or even jumping in between weight classes?
I think it's very doable. I think Drew made a very good point that, Canelo tends to fight those guys who stand right in front of him. And if you're asking me what those guys look like, that looks like Bivol and Beterbiev. They both have looked like they're tailor-made for Canelo, in my opinion. And, Canelo being the 5'8" guy that he is, he doesn't have a problem facing dudes that are 6'2", 6'3". On top of that, Beterbiev's getting older, man. He's not getting any younger. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I think it's very possible. I don't think there's a need. I think that, if you're going to look for a challenge for Canelo after he goes undisputed, I think you should be looking at Benavidez and then possibly Jamal Charlo if he does something during that fight. But Dave, I don't think I've heard you make a prediction for this fight coming up this weekend, bro. I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Oh, absolutely, man. I'm going to put it out here. The show's been kind of not going according to how I planned it today, but I will just put it out there. I don't think BJ Saunders has a chance in hell at getting a decision win. And I also don't think he has a chance in hell of knocking out Canelo. We've seen him in with much bigger punchers. We've seen him with Triple G arguably still at his peak in the first fight, and he wasn't able to hurt Canelo. He just wasn't. So I don't see BJ Saunders being stronger or more powerful than Triple G. Elusive, yes. More difficult to hit, yes. Again, we'll wait to see what this ring, if it's going to be 18 or whatever they said, 24. A smaller ring's not going to favor him. It's going to be less running, less fighting off the back foot. There's no way he scores a knockout upset. Canelo may go the distance with this guy. That's what I think. He may go the distance, and he's absolutely going to win by decision, if not by knockout, somewhere in the later rounds. I do think he's capable of hurting BJ Saunders, but it's a win for Canelo, a solid win for Canelo. Now I have everyone back. Now I have everyone back.
Well, hey, if I could just give one last thought about the Ruiz Arreola before I sign off.
Absolutely.
You know, I watched the fight, and I have to say, you know, Ruiz let me down a little bit. Like, you know, I haven't really been super warm to Ruiz in general. Like, he kind of snuck up on me when he won the heavyweight championship, and then, you know, I saw him kind of mail in the rematch and was fat. And on top of that, I didn't care for the way he threw his trainer under the bus. And so they were trying to sell me this idea of him making a comeback, but I was already not that warm with him anyways. You know what I mean? And then I have to say it was just a subpar performance. I think Chris Arreola was controlled, and I think he did a good job doing what he could do. But, you know, I've been hearing this narrative that, like, oh, well, you know, this was one of the best Arreolas I saw. And it's like, well, you know, he was very controlled, but I've seen Arreola way more hungry. I expected him to open up a little bit towards the end and go for broke. I thought that the controlled style that he was going to have was for the beginning, but he never let that go, which led to a decision. And, you know, Arreola had Joe Goosen in the corner, who knows how to march his ward forward to take advantage and to go all out to try to win. And, you know, at the end, he was not giving the advice a Joe Goosen normally would, which would be to, hey, go forward, get to him. You know, you need a knockout. You got to get this guy now. No, it was just, oh, you got to be smart, you know, have intelligence. And so I don't think that Arreola deserves a rematch because of that. I think he deserves another good payday, but I don't have any interest in seeing a rematch, and nor do I have interest in paying for it either. Thank you guys so much. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks a lot, Chicano Prophet. Everyone, subscribe to Chicano Prophet's channel.
I got a comment on this Andy Ruiz fight and everything. Like, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Andy Ruiz does not beat another top heavyweight in his career.
I mean, you could see that because you start to match him up against Ortiz, who was there in the stands, and he didn't seem impressed. I don't know if I see him beating a really good version of Ortiz, but it does make it interesting to see the thought of him versus Wilder, because Wilder has the power to hurt guys. And I was shocked. I thought Ruiz was going to be the one putting the hurt on Arreola and possibly knocking him down not once or twice or just completely out. It was the other way around. It was Ruiz getting knocked down.
Like, Andy Ruiz, you saw in that fight, Andy Ruiz can be knocked out. He can be put to sleep. If that was somebody else, like a knockout artist, Andy Ruiz would be sleeping.
So both of these guys live to fight another day. Of course, Ruiz still has a lot more room. But Arreola, man, it's at 40 years old. Essentially, with all the fans he has, he could still have another couple of big payday gatekeeper fights.
You know, I got a reply to this comment by Nando. Andy Ruiz will be given a boxing lesson by Alexander Usyk. Usyk will dominate Andy Ruiz. So to say he's going to drop...
They're going to start to think you're biased. You're biased against Mexican fighters, Drew. Let me see.
I love Mexican fighters.
Ruiz. Now, let's just make it clear. Drew is a big fan of Usyk. And to me, I'm waiting to see if Usyk's too undersized. Now, he did... Another guy we just saw fight. Didn't he fight Chisora this weekend? And that fight was another boring fight, too, the Chisora fight.
You talking about the one this weekend that happened? This past weekend? And you know what? I'm going to be honest. It went the way I thought it would go.
Which is what, he was going to die of a heart attack?
Yeah. But people were saying that he won the fight. I'm going to be honest. He gassed out.
Yeah, he gassed out big time.
After the first 4 rounds, he got the knockdown in round 1, but after 4, Parker took over. So I don't see, I can't not, you're telling me that a lot of people told me they had Chisora win this fight. I was like, how? He just did what he normally does when he goes in the distance. He gasses out, he tires out. He could have got knocked out in that fight. He could have got knocked out in the Usyk fight when he gassed out. So at the end of the day, if you're telling me Chisora won that fight, He didn't win that fight. He gassed out.
Now the llama says Usyk could barely handle Chisora. I saw that fight, and I still think Usyk has got to grow into this being a heavyweight. He's still got to grow into it. I'm interested in what he's going to do. Is he the next George Foreman? It remains to be seen. I got some news here. I was joking about looking for a crack stream, right? But I've been mispronouncing Triller. It's Triller, not Thriller. I keep mispronouncing it. But listen, if you illegally streamed the Triller fight, they're suing people, right? I think there's a humongous list of people that are being sued by Triller for streaming the Jake Paul fight to their house. They've announced that there's an amnesty period till June 1st. That's right. If you streamed that fight illegally, they're going to give you till June 1st to come up with the money to pay for the fight, and they won't name you in the litigation. So you have amnesty on the Triller fight, and let that be a lesson not to illegally stream the Triller fights because they will come after you. Drew, your thoughts on that?
Well, don't put bullshit YouTubers on there that think they want to box and everything, and don't put a bullshit fight in the main event, and don't put a drunk or high Oscar De La Hoya on there talking about somebody USSR bullshit.
Listen, if you had to ask me who's more entertaining between a drunk Oscar and Chris Arreola post-fight, I'm still on the fence. If you got an opinion about that, put that in the chat, put that in the comments. I think both of those guys should get the microphone for an event and live commentate. A drunk Oscar De La Hoya and a Chris Arreola. Now that's something I'd like to see on Triller. I mean, not on a regular broadcast, but on Triller, that might be kind of funny, Drew.
You know what, man? Fuck Oscar De La Hoya.
Ooh, there's been don't get salty. Listen, we've almost gone a full hour, and I want to thank everybody who's been in the chat. Now, I did come up with the big winners and the big losers in the sport of boxing, and the big winner to me still is Chris Arreola because he lives to see another day. I thought we were going to see him retire this weekend, but a lot of people do and don't want to talk about this, and of course, I'm talking about the big loser is Top Rank's Puerto Rican star who just got knocked out by Nakatani less than 4 months ago is Felix Verdejo. When the news broke on Saturday that he was a suspect in the murder of his ex-girlfriend, I'm a true crime fanatic. I love true crime. I watch all true crime stuff all the time. I can't get enough of it. I always am interested in what drives people to commit murder. And there's a lot of people. I mean, true crime podcasts are like the biggest things. And unfortunately, the world of boxing is going to have to go through this ordeal and go through a trial. People didn't want to comment on Saturday because the details were so... people were watching the fights, literally, and details were being linked. But I did read the affidavit, which came out like Sunday morning that the prosecutors had filed, and it's sickening. What he did is he's still a suspect, of course, but what he's being accused of is so graphic, disgusting, sick and evil, to kill his ex-girlfriend pregnant, Drew. Sickening. Sickening, right? I mean, it's almost yes, you could be at a loss of words for what that guy did or what he's being accused of doing over having a girl. Let's just put it this way. He's been dating this girl since he was 16 years old. It's basically his high school sweetheart. And then he marries another woman. And instead of confronting the situation with his new wife, he tried to hire hitmen, and he ended up having to do the job with an accomplice himself. That's what he's being accused of. It's sick. It's disgusting. But it's not the first time in sports that we've seen something like this. We just saw Aaron Hernandez go through trial and kill himself in prison. And I don't know if you ever heard of a football player named Ray Caruth from North Carolina Panthers who did the exact same thing. This guy came out of Sacramento and became a star. Had just signed a huge contract, and his side piece gets pregnant. He commits conspiracy to commit murder and has these guys murder his ex-girlfriend so she doesn't have the baby. The baby survived. Not only did the baby survive, but he ended up getting brain damage. And Ray Caruth is out now. 19 years later, he did 19 years. We do got one more call, but I don't know if I want to take this call. I'm on the fence because this is such a serious subject. Should we take a funny call or not?
You know what? I'm gonna be honest. I can't comment on this. I'm not gonna comment
I
on
understand.
it. I said on Twitter I'm not gonna comment on it. Like, tell you the truth, I got a strong opinion on this because his kids involved and everything.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, he really did it. I hope he burns in hell. And I don't care what anybody says. I really hope he burns in hell.
Listen, I just want to say a shout out to Raw Boxing. Earlier today, a lot of people were in his stream. He had the courage to call up the Puerto Rican FBI and ask for a statement from the Puerto Rican FBI in charge. He hopes to get a statement. I think that takes a lot of courage because at the end of the day, most of us deem ourselves serious journalists. I mean, we like to think of ourselves as journalists, as a new media in boxing. So shout out to him. I support him fully for going after that. Let's take a fun call and end the show on a high note. Let's take this one call. Hey, 951, you're on the Shoeshine. It's quite noisy. Shoot.
Go! Hey, go Jaguars! Go Jaguars, baby! Go Jaguars!
Is that all you had to say?
Hey, we're gonna win, man. We're gonna win big time.
Who's going to win this weekend?
Why Drew, you ain't being a hater, Drew. Why being a hater, bro?
Yeah, all right, just tell
Hang
the
up on
fans.
him.
Just tell the fans who you think is going to win: Canelo Alvarez or BJ Saunders.
Canelo's gonna win, man. Canelo's gonna win.
All right, thank you very much, Johnny Savage. My
Hey. Order the press, man. Order the press. Hey, go Jaguars Super Bowl 2020.
Johnny Savage, the
2021 now, Johnny. God damn it.
Yeah, people want to know if he's for real. Like he sings mariachi with me. If he's that drunk, he's that drunk, dude. And he may be. If he goes to the fights, he may very well be one of these guys involved in these altercations, man. That is no joke. Shout out to Johnny Savage.
Dude, he's gonna wind up getting arrested. Had sex in the bathroom. Come on now.
What's that?
He's gonna wind up getting arrested during the fight for having sex in the bathroom, the way Johnny Savage is.
Yeah, I apologize about all that. Yeah, most definitely. But anyways, it's been a great time, a great show. I really appreciate everybody. Don't forget, if you're a fan of us, hit the subscribe button. Give us a call next Monday. Just chime in the chat. You can hit us up at our socials at the Mike and Dave 1 or at Drew Evo on Twitter for any ideas, man. DM me. We'll take those. If you think you got what it takes to be our third co-host, send me a DM, man. I'm totally open to that. Of course, we have our homies G Funky and D Styles tomorrow on HCP. Drew took that bet. I'm going to try to get on that show. Thanks to you, Nandalamas, for being in the chat. Tomorrow we got that show. Then we got Wednesday, the return of Leave It in the Ring with David next week and Amilcar. I'm looking forward to that. And also remember, our podcast is available on Leave It in the Ring on iTunes or wherever you get your streaming podcasts. It's a little bit of an edited version. I enjoy doing that. So definitely subscribe to them on iTunes. So again, let's just recap what went down. Drew Evo takes a pie bet, which we will see next week. Who will be taking a pie? Will it be Drew Evo or will it be D Styles 2 times in a row?
D-Style 2-time.
And I announced I disagree with Drew, and that's all good. Canelo Alvarez for the win next Monday. We will find out. I've made no pie bet. I'm gonna wait on that one, man. So thanks a lot for tuning in, Drew. Your final thoughts?
You know what? We didn't talk about this one fight. It's a women's fight that took place on Katie Taylor versus Natasha Yanus. I really thought it was a controversial decision. I thought it was a draw. In my opinion.
No, that was not a draw. Katie Taylor won the majority of the rounds, hands down. But listen, I congratulate that opponent because this woman has fought Katie Taylor twice previously in the amateurs, and I just think Katie Taylor's got her number on it. But what people really want to see, since you brought up Katie Taylor, is Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor.
She won't fight Amanda Serrano. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Amanda Serrano beats Katie Taylor.
A lot of people do, and I want to see that fight. Women's boxing is getting more attention that they need, and it was a great fight on that undercard. It was a pretty damn good, entertaining fight. I'm looking forward to more of those type of fights. Highly competitive women fights like that. Just happen to disagree with you on that. But looking forward to it next week, Drew. Somebody's taking a pie to the face.
Two times.
All right, everybody. I'm Dave from the 408. Thanks a lot for hanging with us. It's been the Shoeshine Drew Evo. Peace.